Welcome everyone to Zoom into Books this afternoon. We are here with award-winning author Lee Doty. She is a mystery writer and she is here to tell us about her newest book, An Equal Piece of Justice. So Lee, if you would please tell the viewers a little bit about yourself and why you started writing. And for those of you who are viewing, if you have questions for the authors, please type them in the comments section and I'll make sure that Lee gets a chance to answer your questions. So Lee, welcome to Zoom into Books.
Thank you. Thank you, Kathy. Thanks very much for offering this opportunity to an author, and I'm delighted to talk about my books, and in particular, my most recent book, An Equal Piece of Justice. As for who I am, I spent most of my career as a lawyer, not the usual kind who argues cases in court, but I represented healthcare organizations in corporate matters and regulatory matters. And that's such a far stretch from what I write about, which is primarily murder and murder mysteries and characters that I find very interesting. But at the same time, I don't think anyone will be surprised that my protagonist happens to be a lawyer who is a solo practitioner. So, and as far as other aspects of my background, I have 5 children, and I was just telling Kathy I have 10 grandchildren, and they take up much of my time, and I'm delighted that they do. But it makes writing books, it causes me to write them at midnight as opposed to throughout the day, which is fine. I get the job done. And I live in Shepherdstown, West Virginia, which is a wonderful town, small town, perfect place for writers, and it's right on the Potomac River. And I live in a house that was built in 1793. I think I have a ghost in my basement, and otherwise, I'm free to write my stories. And I was hoping I could read a few passages from my most recent book, An Equal Piece of Justice, but maybe I should spend a moment talking about my characters and where the ideas come from. My first book was it actually takes place on Cape Cod, where I used to live and thought I would still be living there, but I created the character Norma Bergen, who is a feisty, abrasive, some might even say sometimes obnoxious, but warm-hearted lawyer. She was initially a single woman into her early 40s, where the first book begins. And over the course of that book, she comes into contact with characters, a couple of characters, who stay with her throughout the series. One is a man named Will Coigne. He is a state trooper on the Cape. Ultimately, the 2 of them move to West Virginia. They also come into contact with a teenager, Laney, whom they later adopt. And that is all taking place during the first book called Tidal Kin. And there is a murder that in fact, this will give you a hint as to how my writing process goes. I usually don't have a preconceived idea of what the plot will be, who will be murdered, how it will be solved. I just sort of write by the seat of my pants. And in this case, on Cape Cod, I was looking out the window. I was able to see a thin sliver of Nantucket Sound with the waves rolling in. And meanwhile, my husband was asking me where the duct tape was. And from there, I wrapped a poor man in duct tape and had him roll in on the surf. And that is how my story began in Tidal Kin. In my second book, the murder victim is found on the Antietam battlefield. By this time, my three main characters, Norma, Coigne, and Laney, have moved to West Virginia. Coigne has inherited a horse farm, and Norma, for various reasons, which she is complaining about in the first chapter, is on her own at the Antietam battlefield, and she stumbles upon a dead body in what is called in real life Bloody Lane, sorry to say. But one of the wonderful things about setting that story at the Antietam battlefield is how fascinating it was to delve into the Civil War history and that battle in particular. As most people seem to know, the bloodiest battle we've ever been engaged in a single day in terms of the number dead, sadly. But the battlefield today is ironically one of the most peaceful, beautiful places one can go. And I try to share that in the book, as well as the horrors of a murder. In any case, Norma does stumble upon the body at the Antietam battlefield, and for various reasons, she's got to solve that murder. By the end of that second book, which, by the way, is called Last Casualty, Norma and her then husband, Coigne, they're on the fritz. Things are not going quite well. So by the time we get into book number 3, my current book, An Equal Piece of Justice, they are separated, which is to say, Norma is in the farmhouse of this horse farm that Coigne has inherited, and Coigne is living in the tack room. And they are living in this arrangement because Laney Sager, who is now their adopted daughter, needs both parents, and so they've worked out this arrangement. Meanwhile, and very sadly, a woman is found dead, murdered at a home that has burned to the ground. And that is the mystery that Norma must solve. And one of the primary reason it's on her to resolve is that Coigne is accused of the murder. So that is the saga thus far, but there's much more to it. Norma brings much more to these stories, and I want to give you a flavor of Norma as I read this first passage from the third book. And this is a passage takes place in Norma's law office, which she has just established now that she's in West Virginia. And a woman comes into her office, someone, as you will readily see, that Norma does not like. So this will be a very short passage. It had been more than 6 months since Norma had seen Marion, and the woman had not changed much. She was attractive and always dressed in pinks and lavenders and wore scarves wrapped at the neck like a Parisienne. Norma found her seated stiffly with a cup of coffee in hand. She forced a smile. "Marion, to what do I owe this intrusion, and on a Saturday? Come to apologize for your ill-advised incendiary letter about the Finger Hut's fence?" "Hardly. But anyway, I've not come about anyone's fence, and I know what day it is, but this couldn't wait." Norma removed her coat and arranged it on the back of her chair and sat down. "As for the Finger Hut's fence, you've made your point, but it's an unconvincing one. You're going to have to do better than a bald assertion that there's documentary evidence to prove your case. Back to the drawing board you go, Marion." She slapped her desk for emphasis. "For God's sake, Norma, you're impossible." "Only with people who insult my intelligence and integrity. Otherwise, I'm a lamb." "Look, This isn't easy. I probably shouldn't have come. Marion stopped talking, and Norma thought she might get up and leave. One could only hope. The thing is, she continued, I need your help. Was the woman mad, asking for Norma's help of all people? This had to be a trick. But Marion's shaky, hesitant manner and her pinched expression convinced Norma to take the woman at face value for now. She folded her hands on the table. I can't represent you, Marion, and Jerry Fingerhut at the same time. Your interests are adverse. I'm so sorry. Norma tried to look rueful. Marion gripped the arms of her chair. This has nothing to do with property rights. It's not your legal help I need. It's my son, Caleb. I haven't heard from him in days. Don't say, what do you expect of a young man? He's not like that. We're very close. Maybe Norma could find someone to help Marion, but she'd have to know a few facts. Norma pulled a legal pad from her desk drawer. Tell me about it. Like I say, we're close. He's 28, only just finished college, but he'd taken a few years off. Started his own business, photography studio. We talk all the time. His father isn't in the picture. Marion continued talking in telegram speak. She sounded vulnerable, almost to a breaking point. I've called Cale a million times, talked to his friends. She closed her eyes, her lashes doing a poor job of damming her tears. He's just vanished. No doubt now, this was no act. Have you talked with the police, with Sheriff Law? It was that kind of county. You had a serious problem, you started with the sheriff. Of course I have. So far, nothing. Marion got out of her chair and turned away. With her body hunched over, she made no sound, but her shoulders shook. Norma took pity and brought her a tissue. Look, believe it or not, I know what you're going through. She shared with her how several years before, when Norma still lived on Cape Cod, her daughter Laney had been kidnapped by thugs. Norma thought she'd lose her mind trying to find her. She'd worried they'd kill her, and they almost had, a fact she left out of this version of the story. I'm just not sure why you think I can help you, Marion, much as I feel your distress. Marion spun around, her cheeks smudged in black mascara. You may be the world's most abrasive, aggravating person, Norma Bergen, but you're also the most tenacious and resourceful, abrasive, aggravating person. Norma wasn't sure what to say or do. I need you, Norma. Well, that settled the matter. It was the simplicity and desperation of Marion's appeal that convinced Norma to help. So that's Norma the lawyer. Not exactly a tame pussycat, but she is able to see reason, and she is able to change her mind, which is what you hope in your characters. You hope that they will be able to change and not just be a one-note Charlie. In the next scene, and they tell us when we're doing book readings to try to choose dramatic portions from our book. So that's what I have tried to do. And this next section is pretty dramatic. It's between Norma's husband, Will Coigne, and their daughter, Laney. Now, as I mentioned, Norma and Will Coigne are on the fritz. They're having problems in their marriage. And they have not explained to Laney what is the root cause of the problem. Laney, being a teenage girl, is not getting along with her mother, Norma. That's sort of standard. And that really comes into play here when there's this rift in the marriage. And of course, Laney has it in her mind that Norma, being Norma, must be the problem here. The two of them are making dinner in the tack room on this horse farm where Will Coigne has been forced to live. Coigne checked the time left on the microwave. 20 seconds to paradise. Aren't you going to answer me? What's changed between you and Norma? Laney asked. Sorry, I was puzzling through that question myself. It could be that all the things that caused the rift between us don't seem to matter anymore, which is why things are going better. Or, you mean like Misty? Laney's fists rested on her hips, still too slim for much purchase there. Was Misty one of those things? She's known all along. Their desperate contortions to hide the sordid incident from her were pointless. Then again, maybe Laney was just guessing. Why do you ask that? About Misty, I mean. Misty was a vet that had taken care of the horses. Laney threw a bag of paper napkins across the room at him, and he caught it. Don't treat me like I'm stupid, she said. I'm better off knowing what went on than imagining things. So just tell me, why did Norma think you and Misty were having an affair? She's such a whack job sometimes. Did she know, or was she fishing? Should he lie to her? The timer dinged. Coigne opened the microwave. We need to eat, he served up. Right, and you need to talk. You needed to talk a long time ago. Her flash of anger almost masked the pain in her eyes. Normally, the vision of lava-like mozzarella jabbed with chunks of ham brought on prayerful anticipation. Now, Laney kept her eyes on Coigne. Try as he might, he couldn't look at her and talk, so he talked to his plate. I won't try to diminish my guilt by saying it was a one-night stand and meant nothing at all, though that is the truth. Silence. Wait, what? Laney stared at him like he'd lost his mind. What are you saying? You mean Norma was right? She rocketed out of her seat so fast she upended her plate. Yes, he barely whispered. All this time I thought Norma was paranoid, but it was true. How could you do this to me? You're married. You cheated on your wife, my mother. You cheated on Norma. She spat her words at him so fast there was no question of answering. The best he could offer was a willing target for her venom. The distance between them, moments ago imperceptible, lengthened across continents with hypersonic speed. Laney was nowhere near finished pouring out her loathing. I don't get it. You love Norma, don't you? I mean, you guys just got married. If your commitment to her means nothing, what does it mean to me? How do you ever expect me to trust anyone? You're disgusting. He thought he was doing the right thing, keeping his infidelity from her. God Almighty. If I try to explain myself, it will just sound like excuses. I know there are none. He wanted that message to sink in. How do I explain hurting the people who give my life meaning? Oh, spare me. Her eyes welled. She pressed a clean napkin against her eyes, then flung it down. I hate you. She got up to leave and hurled herself at the door just as Norma opened it. So I will leave that scene to settle in there. One of the things that happened to me at a recent book sale that Headline Books arranged, it was the Buckwheat Festival. A young girl came to our table and she was looking at the books, and I thought, well, now she's going to go look at the middle grade books and the young adult books. She looked about that age, maybe 13, but she hovered around my books, and she decided she wanted to buy all three, which surprised me. Now she was with her mother, and I just felt obliged to tell her mother that, well, in fact, these are adult books. There are some adult situations and strong language. And the mother said, well, you know, she's very well read. She's read everything, so I think it's absolutely fine. Well, I received a letter a fan letter. People don't send letters in the mail anymore, but I did get, let's see if you can see it, if I can get it, a fan letter from this young girl, 13 years old. And here, I'll just read you 2 sentences as to her opinion about the story. And this, she was referring to the first book in the series. Dear Lee Doty, she says, here she is with a notebook paper. Dear Lee Doty, I have almost read the whole first book. I love how open Norma is and how she just says whatever she wants. One of my most favorite parts is on page 178, when Norma says, calm down, thriller balls. The fact that your wife made the sad mistake of marrying a pig, that isn't my problem. Well, I thought, well, you know, if that's her favorite line from that story, I really think she could handle what I'm dishing out in my 3 stories with Norma as one of the leads. Another thing that was kind of interesting with the publication of this 3rd book, as you can tell, this theme of infidelity runs through the 3rd book. And at the same time that this journalist was doing a little story about my book, she was doing one about another author's book that also dealt with infidelity. Unfortunately, the headline on this article read as follows: Cheating Husbands, Catalyst for New Novels. So there, it appeared that my cheating husband had caused me to write this. That was not the case, and I felt obliged to tell all my friends and family members that was not to be interpreted in that way. But to sort of round things out, I think best if I give you a reading between Norma and her husband Coigne. I won't tell you where they are, you'll figure it out in a moment. But pretty much throughout this 3rd book, they have been at odds. You can tell there's deep feelings between them. Coigne is still desperately in love with Norma, but Norma, who had taken all her life up to her mid-40s before she would even have feelings for a man, had her heart broken. And so it's a tough situation. 5 days. Coigne couldn't believe he'd been incarcerated just 5 days. He lay on a plastic-covered foam pad on the floor of his cell. No sheets, no blankets, and not enough cots to go around, with his head butting up to a stinking toilet. He'd almost gotten used to sleeping with low-wattage lights on all night and all the other features of the jail experience. With 2 cellmates who snored to wake the dead, it wasn't easy. Coigne adjusted his position on the foam pad, but something in his cell had changed. That worried him. He listened. One of his cellmates got up slowly. Something was happening at the door. Coigne couldn't see around the cellmate who stood. A pillow pressed down on his face. He fought for breath, then bucked and twisted and grabbed his attacker's ears and pulled. He flung off the pillow and cried out, but a massive hand crammed his mouth shut. It was a 3rd man, the size of a bull. He straddled Coigne's chest and pinned his arms down with his knees and punched his face, right fist, left fist, then repeat, like it was a punching bag. Here's what we do to cops. The bull rolled off Coigne's chest, took hold of his right arm and yanked the shoulder out of its socket. A few more punches around the ears and nose, and Coigne gratefully lost consciousness. Several hours later, in the infirmary, with one eye open, Coigne observed a frail guard at the door. He was more fully awakened by a familiar welcome voice. You damn well better get out of my way. I'm one of his lawyers. Listen, ma'am, I'm sure you want to see him, the guard said, but I need to call the doctor and see if it's okay. You just wait a minute. The guard focused on his call to the doctor, and Norma slipped into the room. Loose security had its upside. Coigne had already learned its downside. He reached for Norma's hand, his IV line getting twisted in the process. Every inch of his upper body burned with pain. She motioned for him to stay still. He smiled, hoping to allay her concerns, but God help him, he was thrilled to feel her concern. I knew something was going to happen, Coigne. I just knew it. I'm so mad I want to rip the head off the person who runs this place. It's a damn good thing there's nothing heavy and movable around here to throw. Without her hat, which she wasn't permitted to wear inside his room, her long golden hair flew wildly with every gesture of outrage and reminded him the sun still shone. Where were the guards? They seem to be all over the place now, so where were they before? She demanded. It all happened pretty fast. He felt his bandages. He didn't need a mirror. He knew he looked scary. How did it happen? Where'd this maniac who nailed you come from? Under the bed? Under the bed would have been a tough one since I didn't have one. This is my guess. One of my cellmates capped the door when the guard locked us up at night. What do you mean, capped? Put something on the door, even some fabric, a napkin, to keep it from closing. Then that maniac charged in with the killer punches. You recognize him? I'm not going to officially recognize him until I'm at least back on my feet and can defend myself. I assume you'll get new cellmates. Coigne studied his avenging angel, not sure she'd understand him now that he was, at the moment anyway, not the confident, tough husband she'd married. He wasn't afraid. He just saw the world as a lot more complicated than before. His cellmates, they were a couple of addicts caught peddling fentanyl before a dealer. They must have weighed the punishment the authorities would mete out against them against that of the maniac if they didn't go along. I hear your cellmates are in solitary, so at least you won't see them for a while. You know, Coigne, you might be better off in solitary. I'm not joking. What do you think? We'll see, he said. How's Laney? She's worried. She'll be glad to hear from you, Coigne. But no FaceTime. You don't want to terrify her. Norma talked about the case, and Coigne smiled as if encouraged, but the truth was he was disengaged. He just wanted to go home. So I'll leave you with that sorry thought. Maybe I should say a little bit more about my my writer's life and how I come up. Well, I've told you how I come up with my ideas. They just come to me, and I just pretty much write and write and write until they do come to me. But I am very active in activities around Shepherdstown. We have a university here, so there are all sorts of people engaged in the arts and in particular in writing. We have writers' conferences. I run a retreat twice a year at Cape and Springs and Farms, which is a wonderful old hotel in the mountains in I believe it's Hardy County. And we have writers groups, and we have a couple of libraries, a brand new library here in town. And I run a writers group for young people, for teenagers. And that's lots of fun. They really do speak a different language. They're into fan fiction and horror stories and things that are a whole new world for me. That's something I know nothing about, and they are training me slowly but surely. But I also go online and participate in various lectures. There's one in particular by a fellow named Wiley Cash, who's an author out of North Carolina. And so every month I tune in and receive a lecture and essays and interviews by other authors. And it's just very interesting. And but those are the ways that I keep myself going. And I also subscribe to different magazines. I also read faithfully the Ellery Queen Mystery Magazine, which is wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful. That gives me ideas, but also structure ideas. And so one way or another, I put together a writing program for myself, as you do once you're out of school. I did, as I was ending my legal career, I did go back and get my Master's of Fine Arts in Creative Writing, which was also very helpful and kind of opened up the world for me. But you know, you do have to keep at it. It's not a question of just learning and then going ahead and writing your books and everything is hunky-dory. You do have to keep training yourself, tuning into lectures, and most of all, hearing from other authors. It's very helpful. And with that, I think, Kathy, unless you have any other questions of me, I think I will leave it there and invite people to contact me if they want to hear more about my books. I'm working on number 4, scribbling away. And if you get a chance to read any of the 3, they are read, they can be read independently, but always more enjoyable to start with number 1, Tidal Kin, then Last Casualty, and then finally An Equal Piece of Justice. There it is.
Well, thank you so much, Lee. The stories are amazing. The writing's excellent, I can assure the viewers. For those of you who are aspiring writers, first-time authors, I'd just like to tell the story of how I met Lee.
Oh, yes.
I was giving a workshop at West Virginia Writers at their annual conference at Ripley, and like other publishers, I do pitch sessions at these events. And Lee came and pitched Tidal Kin to me, and I liked it right off. And the most important advice that I can share is that when you do a pitch, whether it's for business, writing, any career that you're looking for, that first 5 minutes has to really grab their attention. And go to as many conferences as you can, as Lee was saying. When you get to spend time with people who are passionate like you are, you get ideas, you get to brainstorm, and the networking is invaluable. Lee, do you use a critique group? I know a lot of authors do.
I do, yes. I've always had, well, actually, at least 2 groups that I meet with. Now, I will say that for the past couple of months, I have stepped back from it just because I have been overloaded with those 10 grandchildren and their pets. But no, I have been in writing groups, and excellent writing groups. And they are not only novel writing groups, some of them are playwrights. I'm also in a poetry group. You know, the sort of the more exposure and the different kinds of writing, you know, keep your mind active and inform whatever you're working on. And I find that my novel writing informs the poetry informs the writing, the novel writing. And absolutely, I'm in writing groups. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's good. That's good advice. It really is. Lee has done a couple workshops for Zoom into Books. You've done one on dialogue and I think character development.
Yes, that sounds right.
And they're available on the Zoom into Books YouTube channel. We do have a playlist of workshops. So if you're interested in going to the Zoom into Books YouTube channel, you can watch them there at your leisure. This video will be available on the Zoom into Books Facebook page anytime, and it will be released on the YouTube channel in the coming weeks. And I don't think we have any more questions for you, Lee. What's your next book that you're working on?
Well, the next book, I bring in a new character who is sort of a prodigy for Norma. She is a private investigator in her 20s, and she's learning the ropes about life and about solving crimes, and also learning how to deal with Norma. I mean, she's no shrinking violet herself, but on the other hand, Norma is tough, and my character Holly has to be at the top of her game. And together they will solve a murder. But I'm not going to say any more now, because you know what? I don't know what it is. I haven't gotten there yet. I just have the first 70 pages, and no one's dead yet. We're getting there.
Well, we will look forward to that. Thank
Great.
you.
Great. Well, thank you so much for this opportunity.
Absolutely. For more information or to contact Lee Doty, you can go to her website, leedoty.com. I've put her other contacts in the comments in Facebook. So Lee, thank you very much for coming to Zoom into Books, and we hope you'll come back again soon.
I absolutely will. Thank you too.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.